Welcome to another Conversation Over Drinks. I'm Coach Wolverine.
Coach Colonna.
And we're going to talk today about the fear of failure and how to overcome it. How do you overcome fear, Kyle? What do you fear first, actually?
Okay. Well, I've got like the basic fears, obviously, that we've both kind of gone through in regards to the coaching. It was like the start. Yeah. Right? Let's kind of start there. Like starting anything has some fear of failure.
Absolutely.
Right? Most of the things that we don't bother doing is because you're either not going to be good at it or like whatever the result, you're too embarrassed for other people to see you not be good at something.
Yep. So
in order to do that, but if you think about anything we've ever done, what do you do every time the first time you do something? You're probably not very good.
It's a weird, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Crap, I forgot the word. It's like the double-edged sword. It's like we're afraid to start because we're looking bad, but it's
almost paradoxical, right?
Yeah, paradox. That's the word I was looking for. And it's funny because, like, well, the fear of failure. It's not like for myself, anyways. It's not the actual failure that is the fearful part. It is being seen to fail that is a lot more vulnerable for me.
Which is hilarious in a sense because I've been doing some content, like writing out some stuff that I want to start getting and drawing more parallels between sport and every day. Yeah. And in sport, when you go do stuff, like especially team sports, I can't say in all sport, but in team sports or any sport where there's spectators, where you're going to go do something and only one person is winning. So like essentially, depending on where you fall on that, there's going to be a sense of, or a feeling of failure falling through the whole thing. So being able to be conditioned through that through sport is amazing. But there's a lot of people that didn't play sports or were never in that position or never even had the expectation of like going out, giving it your all. And if your all comes up short, what do you do?
Yeah. No, because then it's like that instant, like, you're not good enough. Like just that like jarring feeling.
Initially. But what do you do in sport when, like if you lose a game, what do you have to do in the next couple of days?
Work harder.
Go to practice.
Yeah, go to practice. It depends. It depends. Like,
I mean, if it's the final game of the year, obviously those are the ones that hurt, right? But
yeah, but like, it depended on when I was in high school and I played volleyball. It would depend on how bad we lost or what we lost for. Because sometimes next session wasn't practice. It was you're doing lines.
Conditioning.
Yeah, lines. You're doing lines a whole entire hour and a half, and that was not.
Fun. Never fun, but you showed up and you did it and you put the work in, right? Like you still like there's still a sense of like consequence and all that. Yep. But I think the overlying thing is we lost, we showed up again, we put some more work in and we kept trying. Yeah. And that is like kind of the lesson that we want to get at with that is like the fear of failing, and we've sent it back and forth a ton of times, right? It's like it's not how many times you fail, it's how many times you're like willing to try. Yeah. And eventually, if you do something enough times, you will get to the point where it is deemed in that world of like a success. You may not be the best, right? Only one person can be the best at something. Yeah. And they're only the best for a little bit of time until someone else does it. But if you continuously put the effort in, you move forward. And the action of doing that, the action of the effort and the action of going through these things, like it sucks to show up to a practice after you lost and you know you're going to get skated. Yeah. And most teams, like if you weren't in a hyper-competitive team, a lot of teams had one guy that wouldn't show up. Yep. And everyone would joke. It was going to happen. And everyone would joke about it and like, hey, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that. And like that obviously transitions into like not sweet things when we start talking real life. So we start looking at these things with a bit of a lens on like where do these lessons fall and how do they move forward. And then when we start talking in fear of failure, if you're willing to fail, but you know if you fail, you learn something, right? You don't lose, you learn kind of thing. Then you get into all the sports cliches, but they all have a place. Yeah. And I think overcoming it comes from the first step to overcoming it is going to be just action.
Right. Well, let's bring this into like real time. What is something that you are currently working on that just low-key in the back of your head, you're like, man, I hope this doesn't fail.
I mean, the biggest thing for me is obviously the coaching, right? We're working with everybody from the lifestyle clients to the athletes, all of that. There's always a point where it's not quite at a full-time thing. It's no longer part-time. Like we've come past that. So it's like it's happening and you want it to happen more and faster. It's just like, okay, well, what do I have to do or where do I have to elevate and those types of things. And there's always a fear of kind of like failure. I don't even want to call it failure because it's already come so far for the both of us and stuff. But it's like, family and close friends, only people I care about that see me, if they see me not doing well, like they're the only ones I don't want to see me kind of do that. Like I want to obviously do well to help those that are closest to me and help those that are around me.
Yeah.
Right. The better I do, the more I can give to my clients, my friends, my family, etc. And that's kind of what motivates me on that sense. But that's the main one. The other one is this like cycle of injuries that I've kind of had through sport over the last like 6.5 months. And then a lot of it was me trying to just like be stubborn and like grill my way through it and do my own thing. And we like managed to kind of just like kick the can down the road. And then we did that episode with Raven. We've had this other stuff. So I've done osteo, done chiro, done physio, and I've learned a lot. A lot of what they said was, hey, you're doing the right stuff. But there's a lot of stuff that I don't have the ability to do. And I think that is like, I want to just do it on my own, and you can't, right? That's why we had mentors. That's why we communicate with each other every week about doing this and doing that. It's nothing that you can do on your own, and I think that's always going to be a thing for me. But that's just me being a little stubborn. What about yourself?
That ego thing of like, I can figure this out on my own. No.
I'm supposed to figure this out on my own.
Yeah, supposed to.
That's what it's in my head, right?
Or should.
Yeah.
Don't ever should on yourself, which I should on myself entirely too much. Right now, current failure. Actually, I can use the injury thing for, in direct relation to you because, like, you know, as you know, 2017, I slipped on ice and tore my quad, and that was a year-long recovery. And that knee still isn't better. It still gives me grief. And then, as we were discussing before this, how like, I'm currently dealing with foot issues and it's pulling on my knees and whatnot. So even when I'm still making sure to go to the gym or exercise and stretch regularly, there's still that low-key thing of like, am I gonna hurt myself again? I really don't want to go through that recovery again. And I was doing it even today. I was doing squats at the gym this morning, and that, of course, that's the first thing I get under the bar, and it's like my brain connects to my knee right away. So that's an ever-going fear of failure. Not one that I recommend anybody to lean into.
I would say there's cautionary failure. Yeah. Also with like your history of lifting way more weight than I've probably even put on a bar ever.
Is different sports. So
I know. Is a little different when we talk squats, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I totally get that.
Yeah. And then for business aspects, well, building my community and then going to launch it, and then just that thought of like, I'm going to launch it and show up for that first group call and be like, cricket. But the only way to overcome that is just lean into it, right? So,
and that's, yeah.
And then even if it is crickets, I still showed up, and then I'll show up again when it's time to do it.
And as we've talked about a ton of times, intent, right? And if you go into it with positive intent and your intent is always there and your integrity maintains intact, and one thing, like, we just never sell out to the whole bells and whistles gimmicky thing, then it'll come. Absolutely. Right? Like the integrity and intent is always going to be at the forefront. And I know that's always been at the forefront with yourself and myself when it comes to what we're doing. So that's super cool. And I know, like, you've talked about even getting groups together on one day a month.
Yeah, we're actually going to do that this month. I've put so much stuff on my plate over this last 2 months. I remember just like last week, I'm like, man, I talked to everybody like 6 weeks ago about arranging that and didn't end up arranging it.
And I've even been in touch with people now that like I'll have conversations with them and I'm like, I need to tell them, but I don't have a date. So it's something that has to happen. And again, if we have that intent and we know it's there and like more people know it's there, you might have to start making more than one group. But the goal is, right, like it's the same thing. The intent is for us to allow people to come in and talk about their stuff. Like if we have, like we obviously are sitting here and talking about things like about failure and all that stuff. Other people don't have those conversations with anybody. No. And especially, we know a lot of the guys.
Yep.
A lot of the guys we have in mind, I'm sure we have the same few people in mind too. They don't have that conversational outlet. And it's not like a vulnerability outlet either. It's literally just a conversational outlet.
Yeah. So it's like something that people don't really think of, like, oh, that's a topic to that's a topic to actually converse about on an okay basis. It's like, yeah, it doesn't have to be taboo.
No, and it's not that scary once they start talking, but they're afraid in this sense, right, to let us or let anyone know that they're not doing as good as people may think they are, or as much as they want to let on. And that trickles right into this fear of failure thing that we're discussing, is that goes from big things like business, life decisions, etc., down to little conversations that we're having, right? And we obviously know, if we're thinking about the same people, that it has a big negative on your mental. Yep. And what have we talked about in the last few weeks that doesn't have like a limit to how good or how developed it can get. Like the mindset, the spirituality side of wellness, right? There's no cap to how positive you can be.
No, there isn't. So if you could like sum up in like one tip to a person who's listening as to like, hey, like remember this the next time you think about giving up. When they're afraid of failure, what's one thing that you can share? And then I got one that's
for sure. So I'll do like if you haven't started and you want to start but you're afraid to fail, write down the first thing that you should do and just do it. Don't do anything else. Write one thing down and go do it. Don't worry about the whole plan. Don't worry about like this 5-year model, whatever. Just go do the first thing.
And don't use the excuse, I need motivation. You create motivation. Come on, guys.
Motivation, positivity, rewiring, all that stuff happens with the things we do. Especially like us as guys, we're going to hold our actions so much higher, and we should be holding our buddies accountable too. Like if someone, we've talked about this at length too, if someone tells me they're going to do something and they don't do it multiple times, I'm not even going to bother. Because it holds a ton of weight. Now think about if that person's doing it to me 5 times, they're probably doing it to themselves 15 times that day. Right? And you can't lose trust in yourself. You can't lose integrity in yourself. So just go do it. If you want to do it that bad, go do it.
Take action. This isn't a video game. We don't get a mulligan. This is it. All right, I'm gonna say this quote, and it's gonna change your life. You cannot fail if you never quit. Because failures if we don't quit, they become mistakes, which is how we learn. Whereas a failure is when you have that mistake and you don't learn the lesson and you let that be the end of your journey. So you can never fail if you never quit. Remember that the next time you are feeling like life's tough. We get it. Life is tough. Just don't give up, because you have an entire lifetime of evidence behind you to this very moment as proof that you have not failed.
Every day is a gift, man. And that's kind of the mentality you take into it. And the more you do that, the better you'll be. So get out, get something done, and be grateful that you got to do it, whether it's hard or not.
Absolutely. That's it for me today, man.
That's it for me, man.
All right, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe on whatever platform you're consuming this on. Take care and cheers.